So what we will do today, as promised in the Tech Week event listing, we will introduce ourselves so that you know that who we are and who you are interacting with during this session. And during this session, we'll take you through these topics. So what is product management? What does product life cycles have to do with product management? How do they align? And then we'll take a little bit of a deep dive into each of the stages of the product life cycle. We'll leave a bit of time at the end for Q&A and discussions, because necessarily this is a small insight on a very big topic. So, and I'm sure you'll have questions about things that we raise. So let's save them for later. One thing I'll just note as we start is that I have pinned a link to the top of the chat. It is a mural, and we will be using mural today to do all of our exercises. If you have used an electronic whiteboard before, like Miro, then mural is very similar to that. And we'll do an exercise at the start so you get the hang of it. So just at the very start, this is not one of your more corporate sessions. Ashley and I do this mostly for fun. And so we like to have fun doing it, and we like to make sure that the people who are doing it with us have fun as well. So our style is generally pretty informal, and you'll figure it out as we go along, I'm sure. My name is Taz, and I'm the head of product and marketing at Flow Software.
My name is Ashley Bass. I'm the VP of product marketing at LawView. And as you can see from the screen, Taz and I have both worked in the product management space. Yep, Anna got you. We'll reshare it. Taz and I have both worked in product management, product marketing for a number of years. We do a lot of training. We do free training like this one, and we also do all different styles of public courses, bespoke corporate training, et cetera, all in the product management and product go-to-market space. So yeah, hopefully you're in good hands, but we also want to acknowledge that there are likely people on the call today who have experience in these areas as well. So do feel free to chime in. We know people are on mute, and we appreciate that. If you want to say something, feel free to put it in the chat. If you want to raise your hand and come off mute, we'll pause every now and again to give people some time. So if you have some advice, some ideas, anything you think is any questions, things you think are going to help augment our discussion today and our learnings, please don't be shy. We're not the only experts in the room, that's for sure. So,
or even if you have some wins you want to share in your own work, always great to hear other people's experiences. So you'll see that we do a lot of courses. One of the things that is coming up that we did want to talk about is our University of Canterbury bootcamp that's coming up. It's a 2-day session, which is mostly focused on product strategy and marketing. It is running on the 3rd and 4th of July in Christchurch. So if you are at all interested in being in a cohort of people and deep diving into product, and just coming out with an overwhelmed fire hose of information, but that'll help you feel like you are equipped to do more in your day-to-day, then give UC a buzz and they will sort you out. So as promised, we will start with a mural exercise, just so that you can get your head around mural. Ashley has reshared the link to the mural in the chat. So if you click on that link, you should be able to log into the mural as a visitor.
And I'll be summoning you to me. So as you log in, you should be dragged over to the space on the mural where Taz is zoomed in. Do you want to show that on your screen or not? Anyway, all we're going to do is a quick practice. So the easiest thing to know about using Mural is double click adds a sticky. So everybody just double click anywhere in any of these boxes that you can see here. Right, so that's our friend today, is double clicking to add sticky. And now what we'd really love for you to do, just by way of practice, is to double click, add a sticky, or grab an existing one. Type your name in a sticky, and then in a second sticky, type the name of your favorite product. Doesn't matter where you put them on the board. You can pick your own box. A tip on using Mural, double click as your friend, and zooming in is also often your friend. So if you're zoomed way out and you want to zoom in and type closer onto your sticky or see what someone else has written, just use your zoom. So name and favorite product. Anywhere on the board. If you want to get really funky, you can look over on your left-hand navigation bar, and we can do fun things like add pictures and icons. So if you want to find a picture of your favorite product, there's something you want to put on to represent how you're feeling right now, you can play around with that as well. So as we use the mural today, we will do some exercises, and mostly what you're going to be doing is double click and type. Double click and type. So it should be pretty easy, but if you have any problems, feel free to put something in the chat.
So nice to see some familiar names in the chat, in the boxes as well. And so nice to see a bunch of people we haven't met before. New friends, always fun. Gemma, if you're talking to us, I can't hear you.
Sorry, just talking to myself.
No, that's all right. Didn't want to put you on the spot, but.
All right, so just having a look, what are we seeing? We've got Disney Plus, we've got wise.com, also one of my favorites, Spotify, Netflix, lots of entertainment apps, desktop computer, that's good. Doesn't even have to be a technical product. Snapchat, good for you. I can't figure out how to use it. Three Spotify, two Netflix. Mine is Bring, the Bring app, which is a grocery shopping app. If anyone hasn't used that, everyone on your family can put groceries on the list, and whoever's at the store has to buy everything that's on there. Google Maps, excellent. So lots of tech products listed. And now before we move on, hopefully everybody feels pretty familiar with using Mural, and I can see some fun iconography going on. That's cool. Have a quick thought. You can put this on the board if you want, or you can just mentally connect. Why is that your favorite product? What problem is it solving for you? Just take a moment to think about that. Saskia, I'll throw the link back in. I think sometimes when they go in at the beginning, if you log in late, then it may not show up, but I will put it in the chat for you. There we go. Nope, sorry, wrong chat, wrong link. Mural link being added now. And this is a visitor link, so you don't need to log in. You can just join as a visitor.
All right, everyone feeling comfortable with Mural? Right, let's go. Right, on to the serious.
Yeah, serious topics now.
All right, so let's start with a little bit of a foundational around what is even product management, and why do we care about it at all to start with. This is the official definition, well, as official as one gets with something as loose as this. Product management is an organizational function that guides every step of a product's life cycle, from development to positioning and pricing, by focusing on the product and its customers first and foremost. What this actually kind of translates to is lots of stuff. And depending on where you work, how big your organization is, and their definition of product management, your mileage may vary. Product management isn't just about software products, it's about physical products. Actually, first, we have lots of clients, and I know people in this group who are hardware and software, as well as software only. And we've had plenty of people go through our UC course that are nothing to do with software, just products. So products and services, all of them have a bit of a life cycle, and all of them go through similar stages, which is what we'll talk about today. This is the Wikipedia definition of product management, the business of planning, developing, launching, and managing a product and service. And when I think about that, I think about the more strategic part of it, what is my product strategy? How will I make money out of it? How will I take this to market and make sure that I'm reaching the right customers? But it also talks about the life cycle of a product, the ideation, the development, the technology, all of that piece. And often, and this is another common diagram that you would have seen in the product management world, the nexus of these three things: business or commercialization, the user experience, is this thing desirable? How will people use it? And finally, the technology, is it feasible to do with whatever means we have today? And the product manager kind of sits at the nexus or the intersection of all of these questions. So to be a good product manager, you need a really good idea of the product lifecycle where your product is in that life cycle. And depending on where you are in the life cycle, a product manager is making different types of decisions or wearing very different hats and has very different focus areas.
So just like every living being goes through a cycle of birth and growth, maturity, decline, and eventually death. Taz is very dark. Every product also has a life cycle. And a lot of you will be familiar with some of the diagrams that we're showing today, but every product really goes through a path on from introduction all the way through to decline.
I was going to say conception, but we don't like to show that on these slides, but yeah.
So what happens, of course, over time, and we'll come back to that diagram, is that your job as a product manager can change. So we're going to come back to this slide as well. But what we're going to do in the session today is kind of go through some of the core activities, ways of thinking, tips and tricks, possible approaches and things to think about as a product manager, as you're managing products all the way through their life cycle, because your role and the decisions you need to make and the actions that you need to undertake and the strategies you need to build will be different at different points in your product life cycle.
So let's start with something that's not even on here, which is conception. Now, products don't get introduced out of nowhere. Someone has to have an idea. And that idea is really the start genesis of any product is what am I building and why? So we kind of ignore a little bit about the idea of conception, but that's where really startups come from. Now, I've got some pictures on the screen, some products shown here. Have a think and put in the chat. What do you think is common to these products?
Any guesses? Any observations? They're all heavily branded, recognizable, mostly bright colored. Some really well-known brands. Consumer goods, yeah, a lot of them are convenient. That's a great point, that whoever built these products was really thinking they were probably solving a problem of convenience, maybe resting on their brand recognition to introduce a new product to the market.
Is that Colgate beef lasagna supposed to clean your teeth at the same time?
That's right. Yes, good call out, Alyssa. First Google result, these are products that should never have existed. So these are all failed products, right? And yeah, good point, Dimitri's. Yeah, Colgate lasagna, lots of question marks there. But right, Alicia's called out this issue that's really behind a lot of the failure here, which is not being able to bring a product to market that had a market, right? So maybe making some incorrect assumptions around the customer need, how to solve that need, whether there was even an unmet need in the first place. So when we think about product conception, the first thing we have to really ask ourselves as product people is this idea a good idea? And by that we mean, is it solving a problem for someone who wants their problem to be solved? If you're looking for buyers, people need to be looking for a solution because ultimately they're buying a solution to a problem. So without a problem to solve, there's no solution, there's no reason for a company to exist.
A really good way to ensure that you don't jump straight into creating products just off the back of ideas is to use some of the tools that we have in our repertoire as product managers to capture the information that we know and also expose the gaps that we don't. And one tool that I've seen used over and over again is problem statements. A really good way to do this. So problem statement is a concise description of an issue to be addressed or a condition to be improved on.
It'll identify the gap between current state and desired state of a process or a product. So right now, we might be thinking at that market level, right? Is there a problem to solve here? How would I state that problem? I have an idea. Let me put that into a format in which I can test and validate with people. If you're a product manager who's working on an existing problem, You might be using this technique at lower levels, maybe not at the market level, but will this feature solve a problem? Will this launch solve a problem, right? So problem statements can be super useful at all stages and lots of different parts of not only the product lifecycle, but the product management or product marketing spectrum. What it's going to help us do is focus on facts, right? What's the problem statement? How should it be designed? It's really to address the 5 whys, who, when, what, where, why, how often, or how frequently does this occur is a good bonus to put in there.
Everyone's still hanging on the lasagna.
Yeah. So if you really love these failed products, you can use them as your exercise going forward, or you can use your favorite product that you had in mind at the beginning of the session, or something that you're working on today, because we are going to practice writing problem statements. So let's just take a look at what a good problem statement format is. Often written in the first person, doesn't have to be, but in this case, we'll do that. And what we first really want to do is identify with our customer. So those of you who made comments in the chat about didn't have a market, what's a market made up of? A market is made up of people. It's made up of customers. Hopefully it's made up of customers who look similar to each other, experience a similar problem that you can reach with some, commonly directed marketing campaigns. So we really want to be able to say first and foremost, who is this person that we're helping? Right now, this might be a hypothesis at your early conception stage, and then it's something you can go validate. But regardless, we need to be thinking about who it is that has the problem. Who are they? What defines them? What are they trying to achieve? What's the job they need to get done? What's the thing that's, that's an outcome for them, right? What do they care about? What are they trying to get done? And then describe what is in the way. So what's the barrier between current state and future state? What's getting in their way that causes a problem, that keeps them from moving forward? And why does it exist? So describing the reason or problems or barriers that exist. And then as a bonus, how does that make them feel? And why is this useful? Well, partly customer empathy, partly marketing. If we know how someone feels, what it makes them feel like to not have a problem solved, then we can do a better job not only designing a solution, but also marketing and selling that solution down the road.
Your solution will not be commercially viable if people don't care deeply enough, or if it doesn't impact them deeply enough that they actually want to pay money to solve it. So let's go to the mural again.
I'll put the link back in the chat just in case anybody's newly joined. When you jump onto the mural, I'll summon you there, but there's a section called problem statement. I'll bring you to that section. There's a whole bunch of little cards on here. These are images. So just pick one and double click to add a sticky on top of it. So what you're going to be doing is putting stickies on top of the image. Double click to add a sticky to one and type your name in it if you like, or put a little picture on it. Just stake your claim. Find your picture that you want to work from. I'm going to add a few as we go because we have more people, I think, than I originally designed for, but that's all right. If you want to move it, you can move it. Some of them are locked, but if you've got one that's unlocked, you can move it around. And don't forget, you can zoom in if you want to get closer to your individual picture. Cool. So if everybody's got one, that's great. If the mural's not your thing, then of course you can just write this down on paper or just follow along in your head. So thinking about the product that you named as your favorite product, or pick one of our failed products if you like, Cheeto lip gloss, or Colgate lasagna, or a product that you're working on today, go ahead and fill out your problem statement. So what I'd recommend is that you add a sticky for each line, right? So just double click to add your sticky and say who you are. So let's start with, who is this customer? Or who do you believe the customer is? You could be describing yourself if you're talking about your favorite product. If you are picking one of our failed examples, who in the hell do you think they thought their customer was when they designed Colgate lasagna? Right? There's going to be something really specific. We want to be as specific as we can about who that customer is, what their attributes are, what defines them. You might be thinking about segments. You might be thinking about demographics. You might be thinking about certain personas, a job someone holds in a company. You might be thinking about a broader profile. You know, the sky's the limit here, really. But it's a really interesting and important exercise for us to try to define who that customer is that we're building our solution for. At a conception stage, this is going to allow us to go size the market. This is going to allow us to validate ideas to see if we can reach our assumed customer. You know, so this part of the problem statement might seem really easy, but actually it's, or you know, kind of simple, but it's actually one of the most important things, because it's going to give us a lot of signals into how we can go validate a product idea, validate a market that we might serve. And if you're in a later stage of the product life cycle, this could be a useful exercise for a different reason. Are we still serving the same customer? What do we know about them? You know, what are they doing when they use this particular feature? What is this person, moving on to the next line, if you haven't filled it out yet, just double click and add, what are they trying to do? You know, what is their desired outcome that you believe is most critical for your idea? What's truly the job that your product needs to do for them? How would they say that in their own words? Taz is typing away.
Well, I'm trying to follow your instructions.
Taz is following my instructions. So Taz has written, I am a CIO of a large complex business like logistics or e-commerce. So she's identified a buyer persona, a specific industry segment, quite specific, but also sizable. The job her person is trying to do is make a system run smoothly and share data efficiently. Taz, why do you want to do that? Why are you trying to do that? What's the job that you have to do as CIO? I'm going to challenge Taz.
Well, I have to make sure that when I need access to information, I can get it appropriately. And if my data is different in one system than the other, or all my systems are not updated with the same information, then it's very likely that I'll be looking at outdated information or wrong information and be making poor decisions because I'm making them on poor data.
So the job that you're really doing is making decisions on behalf of your business or enabling other people to make decisions on behalf of their business. So the reason I'm challenging Taz on this is because it's all good to say, make my systems run smoothly and efficiently, but that's kind of bullshit at some point, right? Everybody wants smooth and efficient and simple and easy. What is it your person really wants to do? What is it that's the true outcome that they desire? How are they going to be judged in their job? How are they going to get value? So if we say things like make better decisions with data, answer a question faster, then those are measurable, decipherable, marketable outcomes. Thanks, Taz. Okay, so just ask yourself, challenge yourself. Have you written something that is explicitly not fluffy, that's really meaningful in terms of the job that your person wants to get done? And do you understand why it's so important to them? Okay, what's in the way? What's in the way of you or your customer that you have in your head from getting that job done? What are the obstacles? What causes you pain? What slows you down? What keeps that from being possible? And ask lots of questions here. Is it cost? Is it technology? Is it time? If you want to put more than one sticky on that line, feel free. There might be a lot of obstacles in your customer's way. So if you're designing a concept, testing a concept, you're going to want to really understand those obstacles.
What I was doing.
So Taz's customer has a lot of different systems.
Yeah, but I think that's the next because I think I've jumped ahead. I think I can't do it because I don't have access. I don't know if I'm looking at the right information.
Okay. So Taz's customers' big problem is they don't know if they're looking at the right information. They don't have confidence in the decision making. Next line is because. So what's causing that conflict? What's causing the obstacle? In this case for Taz, I have a lot of different systems. So I don't know what's true. I don't know which one. I don't know how to look at that information all together in a way that's meaningful. And then how does that make you feel? Do feel free to unmute and speak up if you have a question or you want to challenge anything. I'm going to do a little zoom around the mural and see what people are writing. If you're having any thoughts, challenges, want someone to help you with your problem statement, feel free to unmute or put something in the chat. Yep, so lots of great stuff here, but people putting very specific names, personas, developers, users. That's great. We're really getting into the mind of our customers. Some people are naming, segments. We've got 30-year-olds and digitally conscious. These are all great pieces of information to write down. And now ask yourself, are these things I'm assuming and need to go validate? Or is this known and therefore I can go, and start designing a solution and start thinking about bringing something to market for these people? If you want to zoom around the mural and look at other people's answers, and you can add a little thumbs up or a sticky note or something to them, just zoom out and you can scroll around.
That's right. Colgate.
Somebody did the Colgate beef lasagna example. Great.
Yes. I don't like the taste of toothpaste. I only like the taste of junk food.
How big a market is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Anybody, if you have any thoughts in the chat, do you find this exercise useful? Would you use it? Have you used it before? Please let us know what you think. Not only useful, as we said, at these early stage conception phases, but extremely, extremely important to challenge your thinking about the problem you're solving and who you're solving it for, so you can either go test and validate or start to design, a functional go-to-market strategy, and be able to move to the next stage with more confidence. What do you think? Tell us in the chat. Useful? Yep. Dimitri, which one is yours? Jeremy's used it before. Jeremy, did you find it helpful? Dimitri, I'll go find yours.
Yes, I do find it useful. It just helps sort of narrow into that conversation of what is the problem you're trying to solve, who's it for, and yeah, so then you can then start fleshing out the details around that, and as you're starting to try and bring in various different different departments, be it the C-suite who needs to sign off on the finances to build the product, or
Yep.
sales to check the viability as to whether or
Yeah.
not this is something we can sell, and all those kind of things. It's good to have had sort of thought through this stuff in sort of that early discovery phase.
Yeah, great point. The communication aspect of this is really useful too, right? It can be a really, really strong communication method or technique or tool, right? If you're in a room full of people and everybody's got opinions, and then you just say, look, let's create a problem statement, or here's the problem statement that we've created to help you understand, marketing team or development team, how our customer feels. Dimitri, I think you did a really good job. I'll put a couple comments in. But I think the one thing I would challenge in yours is, and this may just be me not knowing, is your customer wants to do the right things to be protected, to make sure something's not compromising the business. Is there something sitting behind that in terms of, like, I think what I'm challenging is, are they really actively seeking a solution for security, or in fact, are they just trying to move their business forward and vaguely aware that maybe security is, or cyber activity is a problem? So are they actively seeking out that solution, or in fact, is their big job to be done just to keep the business running and you're going to need to let them know how that could be risky. Is sort of where my mind is going in that.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Really, really meaningful. It's Dimitri. Really meaningful. Thanks for your feedback. Thank you very much.
Cool. Okay. Moving on.
Yeah, Alicia said, I'm definitely muddling up the I am, and I'm trying too hard to differentiate. The I am is your very clear demographic data. So when you think about personas, and problem statements need to be written differently for each persona. You cannot combine a number of personas under each one. So when you think about your persona, think about what you might put on your persona template. You might have the type of person they are, their motivations, maybe a role, maybe demographics, maybe what separates them. So someone had I'm new to Auckland. That's okay, because it doesn't really, anyone who's new to Auckland and new to public transport is facing this problem. It doesn't matter if they're a 80-year-old male or maybe a 16-year-old trying to get a bus to school. So in some cases it does matter, in some cases it doesn't. But the more specific you make it, your I am, the easier it is to write the specific problem that they have.
Yeah. And so Alicia, think about the I am as being the attributes of the person or the group of people, and what they're trying to do as the job they want to get done, the scenario that they're in, the thing they're trying to achieve.
And just bringing it back to job that they're trying to do. Here's an easy way to think about it. What job is your customer hiring your product to do? Now, another technique that can sit very well alongside problem statements is jobs to be done. We won't go into the detail of this right now, but there are some really good videos out there that explain with examples how this works. So I encourage you to go away and find this, and there are other tools out there as well. And as product managers, part of knowing what to do and what tool to use is kind of, it's just a matter sometimes of learning and experience, but these are two tools that you are really, if you have these two in your toolkit, you're doing a really good job as a starting point. All right, so the important thing at the end of this section then is to say, be confident that you know who you are marketing for and that there is a real problem to be solved out there, because mint and lasagna just don't go together, in my mind at least. Okay, let's talk about introduction. So let's say you've done your research, you're confident that there's a problem out there, and now you're thinking about building this product, and how are you going to do that and introduce it to the market? So one of the proudest moments in a product manager's life, or perhaps in any living organization, when you're showing off something you've built, right? So I made this is a meme for a reason. Now, just as you're, being a product manager who's taken something to market is like being a proud parent. Same sort of thing. But again, you've got to look after this baby and take care of it. So you got to think about what comes immediately after that birth piece as well. Now, think about this whole circle of life. It isn't just what has happened. It's a progression of how we've arrived at life today. I'm going to do the whole terrible lion thing and said, you're a parent, you got to teach. Mufasa is teaching Simba about life, all of the things that he needs to know in the jungle and encounter and be wary of, the badlands, the dark places, all of those types of things. In the same way, product managers have their own circle, a slight different thing to consider when they are building a new product. So product managers are thinking about this at the introduction stage, right? You can think about it, it's very closely aligned to go to market. Who is my customer? What do they want? What is the problem they want to solve? What is the context they want to solve it in? Can I reach them? And will they pay money to solve this problem? Because sure, we can complain all day long about a particular thing, but if we actually have to pay money to solve it, we'll be like, I'll just live with it. It's fine. And then importantly, how are you going to reach or distribute your product to everyone? Do you actually have the means to do it? The lion has an idea. Tomato. Okay, cool. Thank you. I am terrified of the kind of products we're going to get at the end of the session.
Tomato sauce flavored toothpaste with lasagna. Feels like an upgrade.
Not sure about that. So these are all really important things that you should have in your go-to-market strategy. And these are things that you're thinking about when you're introducing products, for sure. Now, I want to talk you through some common concepts that you need to know about as product managers when you start thinking about commercials. What is your total addressable market? So you'll hear these terms a lot: PAM, TAM, SAM, SOM. I don't know. But as long as you know the jargon behind them, you know what we're talking about. What is the market that's actually available to you? What is your serviceable market? Who can you actually, if they come to you and say, yes, we want your product, can you actually deal with it? And then finally, how are you going to reach them? How much of this market is obtainable to you? And here is a deadly example. So think about coffins, right? Everyone in the world dies. Potentially, we have a massive market out there. But not everyone in the world is necessarily buried. There is cremation, and there are other things. Some people just want to be buried under a fig tree.
Mummified.
Mummified. Yes, very, very, very popular 2,000 years ago.
The meat product.
So your potential addressable market is huge, but that's not actually super helpful, because the number of people who are actually going to be buried is your total addressable market. Those are the people you want to go after. Now, you also have to think about your geography. Maybe your available market, your serviceable market, you can only service the US. Maybe you're based in the US or whatever particular country. That's where you want to start. That's all you can do. Or that's where you have your distribution market partners. But ultimately, the most important thing for a product manager is your serviceable and obtainable market, your share of market. So while you may say, oh, well, I'm going to serve the entire state of California, and that's 50 million people, you can only you have competition. There are people who are not going to know about your product or interested in your product. So ultimately, it is about the market you can service and actually obtain. It's about the realistic market share you can have. Even if you build the perfect product and the perfect distribution network, you're still not going to get 100% of the market. So these are just concepts that you can use to break down whether a market is even worth entering or not.
And so think about this, at different points in the product life cycle, you might be asking different questions. If you're in this pre-introduction phase, you're looking for funding. Well, people are going to want to know, how addressable is your market? You might use your serviceable market and come up with some hypotheses about how many customers can we capture, and model out some options to help you come up with your business model, or help you get funding, or help you figure out your path. Later on, you might be looking at this going, well, actually, we're ready to grow. We're ready to hit a growth point. Where can we go next? How do we penetrate the next step up in this market? How do we widen our addressable market? So again, these are just, we put them in here because we know you hear the terms a lot. Probably a lot of you already know what these things mean, but think about this in terms of product lifecycle, how you might use this information, the decisions you might make, the communications that you might leverage out of this could change throughout your product lifecycle.
Because every product potentially has lots of users, but the trick is now to think about which users you want to go after first. And we're doing a quick thought exercise that will help us think about markets and commercial success. So say our new product is a new community swimming pool. We are very good product managers. We listen to customer feedback. So we did a customer survey and we asked people, what do you want to see in a community swimming pool? And these are the tallies of how people voted. Starting blocks, ping pong tables, lounge chairs, cafes, swim lanes. Yep, there's a nice laundry list in there. So what would you do?
Right. Remember that as product managers, we have to prioritize all the time. We don't have enough time or money to build all these things all at the same time. So what are we going to do? What are we going to build for our community? That's our customers. That's the I am in this, right? Very broadly speaking. And herein kind of lies the problem. So what we might do is deliver the most requested features, right? Starting blocks, ping pong tables, and lounge chairs, because we can build 3 things in the amount of time that we have before launch. So why is this potentially a problem? And how does it relate to these concepts of market segment, these clear definitions that we tried to write in our problem statement? the issue is that there can really easily be this myth of an average user, or, all customers are not built alike. So the biggest potential problem here is that we have to think about, well, who might use our pool? Which segment do we care the most about serving? Because the issue with what we've done here is by building the top 3 things, we haven't actually met the needs of any one particular segment very well. So, starting blocks are great for competitors, but no one else really cares, except kids will probably be jumping off them, cracking their heads open, and that's a no-go. Teens, always the worst segment. Oh, except for Snapchat. Sorry. I can't use it. But ping pong table, serves the needs of the kids, but not really necessarily anyone else. And the parents really wanted the lounge chairs, but they didn't get the swim lanes or the water slide. Not sure why they wanted the water slide, but so really what we need to ask ourselves is, how do we focus in on the segment that's most attractive to us? Or maybe we build some hypotheses and we go out and validate, who's buying, whose problems are we solving? But had we done a better writing our problem statement and thinking a little bit more deeply about the particular segment of the market we thought was most important for whatever reasons, we probably would have done a better job prioritizing the top items. So if we hone in on competitive swimmers as our primary market, then we're going to build starting blocks and swim lanes. And guess what? In far less time, we can add a branded swim cap for delight. And now we've reached our first segment of the market in a much shorter time by prioritizing and understanding deeply the needs of that particular market segment.
So when you think about not just the problem, whose problem are we solving, but will they pay money to get here? How will we reach them? How many of these are in the geographical area? And also importantly, what are the alternatives? Because when you think about competition, this is an important part of it. Where parents have lots of places that they can take the kids to. They can go to playgrounds, they can go to movies. Teens can go to the movies, they can go to the mall, they can go to the arcades. It's lots of competition for, for the entertaining of kids and teenagers, which is really the problem we're trying to solve there. But competitive swimmers don't have a lot of options. And they actually do this really regularly. Teens might go once a week to the pool, but swimmers need to go an X number of times regularly, 3 to 4, up to 5, 7 times a week if they are serious about competing. And they will pay good money because this is something they're really invested in, they're passionate about, all of that stuff. So you've got to think about it from all of these different angles, as in what else? Who's my competition? And how will I pick?
So really quickly, exercise, you can put it in the chat or write something down for yourself. So Anna asked a great question. Would potential revenue for market segment be an input? Yeah, definitely. So if you've got some thoughts, put them in the chat. What are other inputs that might help you make some decisions about the segment of the market you're going to go after? What questions might you ask? What things might you care about? So, potential revenue, that probably largely equates to size of the market. But also maybe, again, if it's a consumer product, disposable income. Another thing you might think about is frequency of problem, or as Taz said, where are they? What's the level of competition that we care about? So we didn't have to pick competitive swimmers. We might have made the case for teens or parents. But, again, it's the thought exercise that goes into this. And particularly in your early stage, the more focused you can be on whose problems you're solving. You might say there's a huge market, but for now, we're going to really hone in on this segment of the market and build well for them. Yep. What about people who aren't using it? That's a great idea for especially an existing product, right? If you're looking at trying to build a roadmap of features, we might say, well, why aren't people using us? What are we missing, right? So may not be a different market segment, but actually you're trying to get a group from within your segment. Spend per visit would be good. Yeah. Ease of access, definitely.
Cool. Social network effects. There are lots of things that people can think about in this space. Like one teenager going to the pool will bring up, 10 friends and say, hey, let's all go. So your spend is 10x. Your revenue is 10x all of a sudden. Whereas with competitive swimmers, they don't care about being in a group.
Yeah, and so again, this can be applied at lots of different levels. We're kind of talking about market level, go-to-market level here, but as some people have posted, this kind of thinking can also be really effectively applied at a feature level, at a lower product level, because if we aren't really clear about the persona or the user or the person that we're designing for in the situation that they're in, then we can really easily get into this world where we create lots of things for lots of people, but not one thing awesome for any one group of people.
And that is the reason that when you think about discovery, now a big part of a product manager's job is discovery. Like we just asked ourselves lots of questions. And if we had a specific thing we were deep diving into, there would be probably plenty more. So discovery is the process of learning about what our customers are doing and having some confidence in those decisions. And you'll see that the discovery effort is always highest at the start because you're learning so much at the time. You don't know, you're finding out, you don't even know what you don't know. So it's really, really important, particularly at the start, to make sure that you are doing the right discovery. But I will make the point that this isn't just about the product lifecycle per se. You always do discovery when you're building a new feature or an add-on module. You know, there's lots of other times when you want, or when you're going to market or going into new markets. Discovery is a really, really important part of our job. And the good thing, particularly these days, is that discovery isn't just about going and talking to people one-on-one. There are lots of different ways that you can do discovery, even asynchronously, by looking at what your customers are saying online, not just to you, but in other related forums as well. But the key to discovery is always asking yourself this question: what are the insights or the information I need to make a good decision? What is the next most important thing I need to learn? And how do I know that I'm making a good decision about that thing? So we have a mural exercise.
Yep, just a really simple one, but sometimes very powerful. I've just summoned you. I've posted the link back in so everybody can just join me here. And again, it's just double click, doesn't matter where you put your sticky. But if you think about a product problem that you're working on today, ask yourself, what's the one thing you need to know to make a decision? What could you learn? What do you need to know? What do you need to learn that's going to unblock your next step? Is it something about the product? Is it something about the customer, the market? Is it something about risk, channels, buying behavior? Just have a thought about that. If you're not working on a product right now, you can go back to your favorite product, or you could think about one of these failed products and say, okay, what did they fail to learn? Now, this could be a very low level answer for you. You could be simply saying, I need to find out how many people are there, or I need to know if somebody actually likes this thing I'm building, or it could be really broad. I need to understand how they spend their day, or I need to size a market, or learn how they buy. Anyway, it's totally up to you, but just ask yourself, what's something that you need to know to unblock your next step? And then in the second part of the mural, just below, what are 3 things you could do to learn that? Is that run a survey, talk to a customer, spend the day somewhere, do some online research, look at your product metrics. I don't know. There's probably lots of things. Talk to someone else in the business who knows the answer. Run a focus group, have a workshop. Lots and lots of different options. Do some competitive research, but what are some things you could do to learn that thing that you need to learn?
And ultimately, it's all about making sure that you remember and doing the process of going through those thought exercises in some way. So we've learned a lot about our product. We're ready, we've built it, we've introduced it to market, it's working. We've gone through the difficult teenage years, we've got product market fit, we've found our first and second segment of customers. yeah, you got past the teenage years, you're allowed to drink now.
I just want to comment on the awesomeness of this mural board, by the way. Alyssa, kudos to you. I'm assuming that you put some of the how you could learn in the sections because you need to know what your customers want, like, hate, love. Yep. If those purple ones about call a few customers, 100%. Look at your product feedback, call a few customers. Those are great ideas. So, definitely talk to customer facing teams of the company. Don't leave that one out either. So I definitely see a lot of great ideas here. Some great questions that people have brought up. So that's really good. If you're writing things like use cases, then yeah, definitely talk to product support, talk to a customer. Go look at what your competition say people are achieving with their product is another good way to uncover some use cases.
Sales and win-loss breakdowns are a really, really good tool to use as well. All right, so sorry, I'm just conscious of time, so I'm moving us along. So now imagine that you've built a kick-ass product, right? What does success look like? Success looks like growth. You've got lots of people coming, maybe lots of new features you're building, and lots of customers for each of those new features, which means it translates into revenue. And if you're doing it right, you might even be winning accolades.
I'm winning. I'm like, yay, yay.
She's winning. Of course you're winning. You want to win. That's right. This is also the most dangerous time because you think about your not your early 20s, you're starting to explore life. You feel like you've got a handle on stuff, etc. But that's also the time when sometimes you could get cocky and kind of just barrel down the wrong path. So just the same way in product land, there are easily things that we could potentially be doing wrong because we grow all of a sudden and then suddenly things are out of our hands. We've got too many customers. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be. Imagine that your customers, because you've got too many customers, you can't service any of them to the customer experience you want to provide. Your customers will eventually get happy and go elsewhere. You've got too many things going on and you don't have enough time to onboard or help other people come and help you, all of that sort of stuff. It's really hard. And it's also the worst time because you're so busy just running on top, keeping on top of what you're doing and the hamster wheel, that you don't always have the time to stop and think about good process as well. So one of the tips that we do have, if you look at the overall picture and say we are in growth mode, make the time for process. Because that's where a lot of thought needs to be. So right now is where, as a product manager, you need to be really on top of your data and metrics to make sure that things are going in the right direction. Are you getting lots of users using it once and coming back, which means your product is actually doing the right thing? Are you engaging people frequently? Are they doing the same thing in your product multiple times? And doing that, are they buying more things? Are they referring you to other people? What are other forms of conversion that work for you? Another thing that you need to be thinking a lot about at this stage is positioning, pricing, marketing, competition. This is the time when other people are noticing that you're doing well and maybe coming after you. It may be that your market conditions are potentially changing because the world changes pretty fast at the moment. Is your brand in danger because your services or your customer experience isn't what it was in the early days? All of these things are something that you've got to think about because it's not just about what's happening now. You have to anticipate what will happen in the future and how you might respond to that. So one really good technique, and I'm sure you've heard of this before, is SWOT.
The SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's a really quick way, again, can be applied at all different sort of parts of the life cycle, but it's especially useful when you're looking at growth, when you're looking at risk, when you're looking at where are we now given where we want to be? So working in multiple horizons, which is often a product manager's job. It can also be something that's really useful at both a high level, company level. It can also be something that's really useful at a feature level or more of a project level or more of an initiative level. It could be internal if you're a person who's responsible for a team. So, it's a really great, very, diverse kind of a technique. It can be used in a lot of diverse situations, really useful, really flexible.
Okay. Give us a react on your teams if you have heard of or used SWOT before. So you can do that with teams as well, like this.
What can you do? Yeah, Jeremy's used it. A handful of people, definitely. Cool. If you have any comments on when you have used SWOT really effectively, or tips, tricks, please put those in the chat. I'm sure people would love to hear if there's a particular purpose, use case, or even a gotcha. What was it good for? Maybe is there a time it didn't work so well? Do feel free to share that. When we dive in a little bit, though, what we're looking at with SWOT are strengths. So these are characteristics of a business that give it an advantage over the competition. Oops, do you want to go to the next one? And we'll bring this back up. But what we might think about are like, what are the things we do well? What do our customers say? So again, your discovery can be really useful here. What's unique about us? What's proprietary? What skills do we have? Strong capital. So these are internal in nature. Weaknesses are next. Where can we improve? What are the threats? What don't we know? This is an important time to think about, is there stuff we need to learn? What objections are hard to address? What are we seeing in our customers who are churning? What are we seeing in feedback? Are we lacking something in our process?
These are typically internal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And opportunities and threats external.
Yeah.
What's happening out there that we could either take advantage of or would be a risk to our business. So mural again, you can see from the slide. Ashley will
I'll summon you.
us.
So back into the mural, and here we've just got 3 versions of that SWOT canvas, so everybody doesn't get their own. But what you can do is use any of the yellow stickies that are on there already, or double click and add your own, any color you want. If you prefer to work in pictures, you could grab an icon or a photo from the left. Just put a couple stickies in whatever places are calling to you. So internally for your business, your product, what are some of your strengths? What are maybe some of the weaknesses or risks? Are there opportunities? Think about you can look at the slide that Taz has on the screen if you want some prompting questions.
And they're also in the mural.
And they're in the mural as well. Oh, yeah, thank you. You can zoom in. And, use these to just guide yourself. So we don't really care how many you put on or where you put them. If you're feeling ambitious, try one in every box. But also note, what draws you in? What are you most concerned about? Are you feeling really like we've got a lot of strengths we want to lean into, or actually I'm really concerned we might have some weaknesses, or there's some threats out there. Our competition is really heating up. Our competitors are better at marketing, or I don't know. Are there opportunities you haven't thought about? So just have a little trip around. You can pick any one of the 3 and add as many stickies as you want in those sections. And you might find that at different points in the product lifecycle, you are more aware of certain things, right? Or maybe you're really concerned about lots of weaknesses as you're trying to enter a market. Maybe you have more threats, but then you really want to coach yourself to think about what are the opportunities then, what strengths do we want to develop, right? So the whole point of doing this is to make it actionable. We're not really getting deeply into that today, but in this growth stage, applying this kind of thinking can be really, really valuable to help you make decisions, help you communicate to the business about your strategy. And can be in a product line, can be at a feature level, can be at an entire company level.
New market, new opportunity. Actually, that's what we're talking about next, isn't it?
Cool. So definitely some great stuff getting put on the board. Would definitely encourage you to do this with a team as well. So a lot of times as product people, we might be, you know, doing this on our own and then using it as a communication tool. It might be an individual thought exercise, or it could be something you facilitate with your business. I know that about a year ago with my business, we had a strategy offsite, and we did a SWOT analysis together as an exercise to help us, you know, regroup and set the stage, and then use that to have some really good conversations about where should we go next, or okay, should we stick with our current segments, you know, what's going on. So it definitely can be just a really good moment in time as well to say, what do we know, how do we as a group put our information together on a page, and then use that to have more successful discussions. So have a think about when this could come in handy, given the job that you have, or the work that your company needs to do.
We did almost exactly the same thing. We are expanding into Australia, but you know, this time a year ago, we were sitting down there and saying, what's in our way if we are going to do this?
And again, feel free to comment. You can unmute, or you can put something in the chat. You know, anything coming up for you, want any help, have any thoughts? So while we're talking about growth phase, this can be a really good exercise that can be a precursor to answering some key questions about where you want to go next. So if your goal is to continue to grow, you're going to need to ask yourself questions about how will we do that? So it's more useful to have these kinds of discussions once you really understand where you are, what's going on, and then you can combine these two things. So if you've done your SWOT, you might be asking yourself these kinds of questions, or you might ask these questions and then go back to your SWOT to say, okay, what does this mean for us in the real world? So what you want to think about are, you know, how will we achieve growth? Will we bring our current product to more markets, to more people in our market? Will we introduce a new product to our existing market? Will we completely diversify? That's the hardest thing to do, really. It's highest cost, highest risk. Or are we going to keep doing more of the same and really go after penetrating the current market that we have? And depending on the answer, your activities are going to be different. Your product strategy, your roadmap could look very different. If you think you need to enter a new market, then you need to go do discovery and find out what that market needs. If you just need to penetrate the current market, then you need to ask yourself what's in the way in terms of marketing. Like someone brought up earlier, are there features that we don't have that are getting in the way? But again, it's really valuable to go, well, why are we building what we're building? Or what's the situation that we want to achieve, so that we can make really solid decisions about our growth and then help use that to drive our product strategy. Add anything to that? Because these are all options for you in terms of growth, and you need to know which one you're going after.
I was going to say that I would use the analogy of the coffins here. Where if I'm in a particular state, like if I started with California, I'm like, well, it's a pretty big market. Should I just concentrate effort within the state itself, or within a different segment in the state? Do I go deeper, or do I go, well, now I've done this and I've learned some lessons. Now there's no reason I can't go after the rest of the country or the rest of the world. Or maybe I can say, well, coffins are great, but I've got so much feedback that people also want to buy these other services along with it. Maybe it is a tracker or whatever. I'm not going to make assumptions about the death industry. but there's lots of complementary products I could sell while I was also selling coffins. Maybe it's a different type of coffin now, that it's not just, maybe there's a premium version of these. So,
and from a product strategy perspective, though, the answer to this question is really important.
Yeah.
Combine this with what you've put on your SWOT analysis and go, okay, this gives us a path forward, or a reason to invest in this, or a set of things we need to learn so that we can then go figure out the right thing to build. Cardboard coffins. Perfect.
So we're at a really good stage. The product maybe is all grown up. So what happens now? Well, typically life is good, right? Hakuna Matata, no troubles. We've made it this far. We've got lots of customers. We're thinking about growth. We've already achieved a few stages of growth. It's all pretty good. So here's just a really zoom out and marketing view of what's happening at each stage. When we started, we had pretty low sales and high cost per customer. Most of our customers were early adopters, and we were probably not doing that well from a financial perspective. As we grow, we increase sales, our cost per customer increases, our profits rise, which is great. And then what happens at this point is that we start looking at competition. And then as we get into this stage, maturity, there is that we hit a saturation point in the market. So as product people, we need to learn how to recognize this and think about strategies that we could employ to get past this stage. One of the things that you will often run into, either by this time or particularly at this time, is competition. There is always someone who's been eyeing your growth and watching you succeed and go, I want some of that action too. So you don't want to, this is where it all comes in, where you see competitors who are keeping an eye on you initially, going to see if it's successful, let someone else take all the risk. But once they see you're doing well, there's no reason why they can't jump in and say, I can build the same product faster or cheaper or in a different way, or change the value proposition. So do better marketing, offer a discount. There's lots of ways that competition can undercut you. And usually this is where maturity starts to be, the having what you have tends to be a what am I going to do next? Because you've kind of reached a saturation point if you've got a lot of competitors. So this is where you start doing serious competitor analysis to think about where you might go next. Now it's no longer about internal and external strengths and weaknesses. It is about this particular factor. And there are three types of competitors, broadly speaking. There are people who are doing exactly the same thing as you. They have the same label and the same branding. They're going up, that's glass, and then there's another glass, and they're all just glasses. They're all the same. But then there's indirect competitors. They offer different features to you, but they are servicing the same customer and potentially solving the same problem. So I could say, well, I could drink water in this, so I could drink water in this. They're not exactly the same, but drink tea or coffee or whatever in that. It's not a very specific glass. So slightly different features. This one doesn't have a handle. That one doesn't have my pretty embossing on the glass, but we're both drinking liquid out of some receptacle. So servicing the same customer, so to speak. And then often what will happen is a bit of a mix and match of things that can also be competitors. So when you think about things like large platforms like Salesforce or HubSpot, etc., and their competition isn't one thing. It's a combination of different software that have somehow worked together in a way that's complementary and work with each other. So the challenge for you is that your customers are going to be looking at all of this stuff and going, oh, what's the right decision for me? And your job is actually to make sure that you have the right competitive analysis so you can address those things. Because too much competition leads to loss of customers and forces you to reduce your own price. And over time, that will reduce profit margins and eventually the viability of your business. But all is not lost. This is also a really good time to go back to that Ansoff matrix and the SWOT and say, okay, what can I do next? Can I go to a different market? Or can I do a new innovation thing that my customers don't have the technology to do? Or this is a great new idea. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is extend the life of our product. And one of the things that's really, really important at this stage when you are thinking about this thing is differentiated value.
Yeah. So as product people, we really have to think about at any stage in the product lifecycle where we've chosen to really focus on it here, because of course, maintaining your product health is going to be a lot about having a unique value proposition and maintaining that unique and differentiated value. But we have to think about this at any point. If you're entering a market that has competition, if you're entering a market where people are solving the problem in a different way, getting the job done somehow, you're going to have to offer them something special to get them to switch to your product or get them to stay with your product. If you've got a mature product, you might really be thinking about what is the service or the features or the components of this thing. Hello, what did you just do? Taz is taking pictures. What are the services, the features, the components of our customer experience that keep us sticky? If you've got a highly metriced product, you might actually have signals. You might have North Star metrics. Are people still logging in? Are they using the features we know we can, equate to value? So depending on the world you're in, there's lots of different ways to think about how to measure this. But ultimately, as product people, we really want to think about what's setting us apart at any stage in our life cycle. And that's our unique value proposition. And one way you can think about this, particularly in the product world, is game changers. So this is a great matrix for you to think about because it's super simple, 2 by 2. There's lots of complex ways to think about this as well. But when you're looking at a product and its differentiation, you're always going to have things that are just table stakes, right? We have to have them to be competitive. We won't be able to, meet customer needs without these. Maybe we're in a highly competitive situation. But what we really want to avoid are things like fool's gold, right? These are things that we think are distinctive, but really don't drive value, right? These are things that really are nice to have from from our perspective, or they're wonderful, but from our customer's perspective, they might just be like, yeah, that's a nice to have, but it's not really meeting my needs. You'll often see this in the relative underuse of a lot of product features. So I think the stat is something like, 80% of product features really go effectively unused, right? There's going to be certain things that people are really excited about and use all the time. And then lots of things we spend time and money on that really we thought were a great idea, but didn't matter. And this is where your discovery and validation and customer understanding are so critical. What you want to look for is those game changers, right? You won't be able to build them exclusively, but have a really strong perspective on what they are because they're important to customers and they're highly differentiated from your competition. And they're going to allow you to compel a truly valuable customer value proposition. They're going to allow you to market. Maybe they're going to capture a lot of users in your product. They're going to lead people to those aha moments. They're going to make things sticky. Those are the kinds of things to think about, right? How do these things keep friction or keep obstacles out of your way?
One thing to think about when you're thinking about what your own game changers might be, which is the exercise we'll do next, is that it's not just about your product features. So product features obviously are an important component of it, but it could be about the specific thing you offer that no one else does. That is a product or a price or a positioning, the branding. There's a reason that people will pay premium for a Coach bag and not, the same money for a similar bag from the warehouse, all that sort of stuff. So another one that's really starting to become more important these days is community. When you have a community of users who help each other, support each other out, it looks like other people are validating it. Reviews, 5-star reviews on Google are an amazing game changer in some respects because people who are evaluating 2 things and they see all these 5-star reviews for your product, they'll be like, yep, I'm definitely going there. So there are lots of different ways to innovate, not just in your product. And really, you have to be mindful of all of the different things you could do in that game changer space.
Yeah, and so Anna, exactly right. So you need to create the table stakes to get that right to play. And the game changers are your competitive differentiators. One of the things you might have to do is find the right balance. Are there some table stakes you can live without because people will actually come to you because of those distinct competitive advantages? So the rule isn't likely to be you've got to build all the table stakes and the differentiators, but you are going to have to be thoughtful about what you do have to build that's table stakes. And a really good exercise to ask is, well, when we're trying to prioritize, we're trying to invest, what category does this fall into? And do we have the balance right? Because a lot of times what you'll find is people think they have game changers, but they don't. And everything you do is an investment, right? Mm-hmm. So, just even having some of these concepts to have really good strategic discussions can be really useful. If you're trying to understand where your game changers are, maybe you've got a product that's great, but you need to figure out how to market it and sell it better, you might apply this kind of thinking. But be really honest with yourself about whether something is in fact a game changer, right? Because if you think you have a bunch of game changers that are actually table stakes, you might need to go do some work to find your game changers and build those fast.
We're not covering it in this session, but there's a lot of cool prioritization techniques that you can use to actually figure out some of this stuff. There's the Kano model. And of course, there's stuff like this, which is really basic 2x2s, value versus impact, all of this type of stuff. So Moscow is a really good way to identify your game changers, because all your must-haves will force you to make sure that you can do the thing that your product needs to do well end to end. If you can't do that, then there's no point adding cool delighters, because if you can't do the basic job, it's no good adding lipstick to a pig,
That's right.
gold on a turd, whatever that is.
Both, either.
Some colorful expression.
So pop onto the mural if you want and just have a quick think about what are the game changers in your product or offering. And also, again, as Taz said, this doesn't have to strictly be features. It can be service. It can be price. It can be community. It can be lots of different things.
So for the business I work at, Flow, some of the things that are unique to us that we don't, that's impossible for our competitors to even do, is having local support. We are one of the few companies where you can pick up the phone and talk to a human. And that's a game changer to loads of people.
And why is it a game changer in your thinking about your problem statement? Why is that such an important game changer?
It's actually a business thing rather than a particular problem statement. But yes, it's true that integration software isn't just about making good decisions. It's also about making sure that documents are flowing appropriately and there's good workflows through the organization. When those get blocked, there are serious problems. If you're not getting invoices from your customers, or you're not getting purchase orders, or you can't track where your goods are, that's a critical risk to the business. So if something isn't right, you've got to be able to quickly fix it. And sometimes you send off an email into the ether or submit a contact us form, and then you wait for a reply. Sometimes it's just not good enough.
Yeah.
You just need to pick up the phone and talk to a human being and know that someone is doing something about it.
And if you don't know what your game changers are, if you're in a position where you're like, oh, I'm not sure which things, then that's when you need to ask your customers, or you need to look at your data, or you need to ask your salespeople, right? Because again, depending on your job, if you're doing feature design, you're going to want to understand that really deeply. If you're doing marketing, of course, you want to understand that and promote those things. If the whole business knows what some of these game changers are, then that's great. Everybody can sort of rally around that. If you're not sure if you have any, find out, and then maybe think about how to build them. Questions, thoughts, ideas? Lots of good ideas on the mural, so that's cool. Lots of the things people are putting on the mural are around support, human support, community support, 24/7 support, intuitive help. Again, ask yourself, why are these things game changers given that persona, given that problem statement? If you're working in business to business software, it's probably because you're building something that's mission critical, right? It's something that people don't have tolerance for friction. They need to trust it. They need to know that it's going to work for them. And that's really important, because that can be a really solid part of your strategy. So maybe you need to find a way to scale out your human support. What are you going to do? What are you going to build in your product to avoid problems, or allow people to self-serve in a way that they don't feel undercut, right? Where they still can achieve what they need. So, even though you may need to change some of what your offering is over time, it's really good to know what people highly value. There's lots of different ways to achieve that. Cool. Compliance. We've got we've got a few different self-service ideas here. Multi-channel support. Cool. Lots of people seem like they have customers who are really concerned with, can someone help me when the shit hits the fan? I would highly advise you to make sure the shit doesn't hit the fan if you're writing those types of things down. That's another thing. I mean, great support is great. Don't give people a reason to call you.
Yeah.
That's where I'd be immediately going with my product strategy. How do I make sure that the likelihood of anybody calling us is low?
Yeah.
But again, that probably was fine at whatever stage you got to. It's like, what's going to get you to the next stage? How do we think about that? And make no mistake that in a business to business situation, that is really important. So if what people love about you is your support, don't give them a reason to call you.
Actually, that's a really good point as well, Ashley, you've just raised, which is that business to business game changers are very different to business to consumer. It's really important when you're doing your segmentation to think, am I servicing a business? Is my buyer actually a business, or is it a person in a business? Because of course it is a person in a business, but are they buying it for business purposes or for their own personal use? Because that will really, really impact how you think about many of these things.
Yeah. So, and just challenging the person who put something on here around decarbonization, that's great. I think that's awesome. You have the product that enables people to make those meaningful impacts. I would love for you to put a sticky on here that says how you do that better than someone else. How do you make that possible? It's great that you do. That's your value proposition. Tell me a way you do that no one else can copy right now. That would be my challenge on that one. Sorry, I'm gonna start picking on people. I mean, all right, I challenged Taz, so I had to challenge someone else. But I think, you know, these are great starts, and that's always the thing to do, is challenge yourself to say, how can I be more specific about this?
I'm also saying 99% uptime. 99% uptime is actually not a game changer anymore. 99.5 is actually kind of, yeah.
But maybe in your your industry that is, right?
Yeah.
But again, how easy, done, change, 99.5, we're good.
Yeah.
But you know, how do you ensure then, as part of your product strategy, that will continue to be a game changer, right? That's where you're going to put your investment.
Yeah.
If it's what's important.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, good ideas here. Great. Feel free to pop anything in the chat if you want to bring something up. We're just getting into the final section.
Sad. It's the end of our session, and it's also the end of our product life cycle. But yes, at some point you can only do so much. Your product is in decline, and there is, that's just the reality. So when you go back to what we were thinking about, a product manager does at the beginning, these are the three components of product success. Is it solving a real problem? Is it desirable? Is the technology to build it available and feasible and all of that stuff? Is it scalable? And then also, is it a commercially viable business? Will enough people change it? Is the market condition right? All of these things can change at a moment's notice. So it could be that the need for this changes, that you know, as cars got popular, nobody wanted horses anymore. It may be that the market conditions change. So when the pandemic happened, so many businesses were just not viable because the market significantly changed. Nobody was going out to eat, nobody was doing all of that. But you know, so just some businesses were unable to survive. And of course, technology changes all the time. So a product that you built 20 years ago, those tech stacks are completely obsolete now. And you know, there's lots of new competitors who can do things faster, better, more securely, more performantly. So unfortunately, at some point you have to accept the inevitable. It's not possible to keep going. And so as product managers, one of the things we have to think about is planning for end of life. And we're not going to spend too much time on it, but you'll only do this hopefully a few times in your career compared to all the other stuff. But it's important to know that this is a thing. So there is a point where, you know, there's general availability, people are using your product, but at some point you're going to start thinking about how you might end it. And you might think about how much notice period you give. So while, you know, you might say for products that are relatively easy to switch from, etc., you might give shorter periods. For big critical B2B products, like currently we're going through this exercise now, I can't imagine giving anything less than 2 or 3 years notice, because you know, they're big complex products that will take time to end of life. So when do you stop selling them? When do you stop supporting them? When do you stop building new product features? And then when do you just completely just stop talking about them, take all mention of them off your website, all of that stuff? Those are all slightly different decisions, and they might fall on different points here, depending on your perspective.
And so as a product manager, a big part of your job might be facilitating these conversations, making the decisions. Again, if you're responsible for how your development team, you know, working with the development team to spend time in the right possible way, knowing these answers can be really important. And I've definitely been through things with companies where, we didn't answer some of these questions. And so we just kept building stuff, even though we didn't want to, so I mean, just be thoughtful about where you are. And then another key part of being a product manager, of course, is communication. So when those decisions are made, how are you helping to facilitate that effective communication with your business, with your customers? It may not be your job all on your own, probably not. For most of us, we're working with a lot of other stakeholders in the business, but we want to make sure that we're communicating and planning. We're taking care of our customers, we're protecting the business in the right way. And then, of course, we can move on to thinking about what happens next. Now we could start all over again. We could figure out where our growth starts again. We could launch, we could enter, we could extend product lifecycle. So we might just come right back to the beginning, or maybe we've already started that replacement strategy for that revenue earlier on. And so you may have multiple products or feature sets that are in different, different stages of your product lifecycle at any given time.
So just to wrap up then and recap, each of these stages, as a product person, you are wearing a slightly different hat. Your goals are different, and the things that you focus on in your day-to-day and week-to-week and month-to-month will be different. So now the question for you, and you can answer this on the mural or you can write it down if you like, is what is the one thing you took away from this session, thinking about this picture, that you could use tomorrow as part of your work?
So you can jump onto the mural. We've got this one last thing here. If you're looking for a little photo op, take a screenshot of this if you want. This is just coming back to, as product people, what we do throughout the product lifecycle can change, right? So this is the area of focus, what you want to think about. So feel free to double click and add a sticky, pop it onto the place in the product lifecycle the thing you work on is. And then if there's one key takeaway from today, one thing you would apply, a concept you really liked, something you want to learn more about, please write that on the sticky. And if you have any questions, we've got about 1-2 minutes left. So do feel free to pop questions in the chat, comments, advice, or unmute, and same options.
The other thing I'll mention, of course, is that feel free to link in with us, whatever the term that hit us up on LinkedIn. And yeah, if you have specific questions or want to have a coffee or chat or something like that, always up for a conversation.
You can look
It's hard to share in a group of large people.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want everyone knowing all your business all the time.
So you can find us, Taz Gould, Ashley Bass. Our company is GSDA. Our website is NZGSDA, and we also have a LinkedIn page. So, hopefully Tech Week will be sending you some surveys to get feedback. We really appreciate any feedback that you do have. We'll definitely take a look at that. But if you want to reach us directly, all of those options on LinkedIn are available.